If Reverend Sam were here this morning, she would wave a magical tail, perhaps have a bag of things that she would demonstrate, explain to us the metaphorical meaning of the video you just saw. We would be spellbound, we would be attentive. Well, I ain't Reverend Sam. But drawing on the video, the theme of hunger comes to mind, not literal hunger, but spiritual hunger, spiritual learning. And I want to hark back to a time in our congregation's history when we went through this cycle that you saw in the video, when a group of about 50 members and friends meeting at a school decided that their hunger and their yearning for a home was the overriding priority of our congregation, then known as Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Northwest Tucson, UUCWT, a mouthful. Sorry for the pun and the hunger. And we went forth, and we found ourselves a home, and that home was the Cromwell property. And we called a minister our first, Susan Mankerseal. So we went from that hunger, that yearning, to the cocoon and to the butterfly, which was our home with a called minister. Now we're starting a second cycle. We again, for the last 4 years since we sold our Cromwell property, are yearning, hungering for a permanent home, which we now have. So I would say that we're in the cocoon stage at this juncture as a congregation, and that soon that cocoon will develop into a wonderful, wonderful butterfly as we occupy a new space, as we call a permanent minister, as we celebrate our interim minister, as we celebrate each other. Now, stewardship this year consists of personal stories, personal testimonials. And I asked Ann Bowling, who's the liaison, liaison to the board, and Reverend Sam and myself decided that we would go forth and ask 20 of you to write testimonials or personal stories about what keeps you coming to MVUU, why you are passionate about this congregation, however you wanted to frame your personal story, your personal testimonial. I want to recognize that we have 16 stewards, and this is kickoff Steward Month, or Sunday, for the month of February. So I'd like those stewards who are in the audience today to please stand and let us acknowledge you. Great. Thank you so much. There are many stewards who are preparing probably for Super Bowl Sunday. Very soon, if you haven't been contacted already, your steward will reach out to you and engage in hopefully a conversation in your home or elsewhere, and ask you what MVUU means to you and how that's reflected in your financial commitment to this congregation. We have 4 personal testimonials today, and they are much more eloquent, much more heartfelt, much more expressive than I could be this morning. So we're going to start with Ann Leonard, and then it will be followed by Tom Sawyer, and then Ann Tatum, and then Ann Bowling. So the 3 Anns and Tom will give the testimonials today. We're going to start with Ann Leonard. Thank you. You want me to put this down a little bit?
Okay, is this good enough? You can hear me? A little more. How about this? Okay, thanks. Well, unaccustomed as I am to speaking, I'm going to read you my statement. I have been an active member of MVUU since 2007, when I moved here from Reston, Virginia. I'm very fortunate to be living in Tucson near my 2 daughters and my 2 grandsons. I have a son also who lives back east, but he does visit very often. Working on my art and participating in MVUU are my major interests. Before moving here, I lived in many places, although my permanent home was in the Washington, D.C. area for many years. I never had a formal religious affiliation. I became a UU after my husband's death in 1990. Joining the Unitarian Universalist community has been a major, life-changing experience. It has provided a supportive and stimulating community of friends, as well as opportunities to make what I hope is some impact on the issues that are of concern in implementing our 7 principles in the world around us. As an MVU member, I have served on the membership committee for a long time. I was a greeter. I participated in special products, including fixing up our previous buildings. I even served on the board at one time. I enjoyed being on the ambience committee and working with a small team that arranged art displays in the past. Currently, I'm serving as chair of the Justice Coordinating Council, and I continue to work with Pima County Interfaith in its efforts to gain justice through nonpartisan political action. My life is enriched through this community in many ways, and I hope to have contributed to its enrichment as well. As our saying goes, I do my best to contribute my time, talent, and resources to keep our community strong and hopefully growing, definitely growing. I'm looking forward to our new building.
I came late to UUs. Many of you have much longer experience with this religion than I do. 6 years ago, I walked into a UU service for the first time in San Marcos, Texas, at the invitation of a friend. I immediately, upon reading the principles, fell in love. I fell in love with the principles that I had attempted to live all my adult life, but never had a name for it. I was and am deeply committed to this day, and hopefully in the future committed to the principles that we all share, particularly the search for spiritual truth and meaning. That's what keeps me coming back here. It's that identification that I had as a college student with people like Thoreau and Emerson, who, lo and behold, when I'm in my 60s, I discover, guess what? They're UUs. The influence of Joseph Priestley on Jefferson and writing our Constitution. How many heroes of mine turned out to be UUs. Amazing. So MVU is a touch point for me of sharing time and spiritual journey with you because you get it. You get it. You get the fact that we are the stewards of all the invisible, beautiful things in this world. Love, compassion, kindness, sustainability, you name it. That is why we are the stewards of the invisible. So this journey for me has renewed me day in, day out to continue the search for truth and meaning in my spiritual life. It's not only was a discovery of you all, but a discovery of a better version of me.
I'm Ann Tatum. And it was just a few years ago I realized how my early years have influenced my later life. I was born outside of Boston When I was 9, we moved to a really sweet little country town called Oxford. And Oxford was the home of Clara Barton, famous UU. Well, it was Universalist for her. And there was a small downtown with a few stores. By 7th grade, I was in the fabric store all the time on Saturdays. Above the fabric store was a floor with large windows, white, peaked roof with a spire. It was a Universalist church, and there was a sign on it saying it was the oldest Universalist church built in New England. My junior high teacher was Clara Barton Turner, grandniece of the original, and she was quite a woman. Coming from that town, my family was Catholic. When I was a sophomore, I was sent to school in the city, a private girls' school run by nuns. There was an organization that you could do after school, and it was for spiritual growth. I thought, this sounds interesting. Yeah, I'd like to be better. So I went to see, and it had 3 prongs: prayer and contemplation, intellectual growth, and service to others. Well, that sounded pretty good, so I hung with it, taught Sunday school for my service, had my personal mission, spending time with my grandmother. And then, as I got into college, I continued. I had an opportunity to continue it. And I was working summers in a juvenile detention center, going to meetings and whatnot through those years. Well, by the time I finished college, I moved on into busy life, work, marriage, children. I found myself in my early 30s. I was divorced. I had not been going to church for many years. And my son was coming home with questions. So I said, well, I think it's time to go to church, and I think that Unitarian church down the corner sounds pretty good. So I went there for him. And I had a young daughter. She was a toddler. Well, I was hooked by the second Sunday, and then I joined. It was so natural. I felt like I had come home. And that was in New Mexico. When we moved to Tucson, we didn't know there was the Unitarian Universalist Church of Congregation of Northwest Tucson yet, but we found it in the newspaper one day, and we started going, and after 2 meetings, we joined. It was the right place. So through, thick and thin, for 30 years, and there's been ups and downs in life, harder times, and times I was so busy I could barely concentrate when I would come, times that maybe I had such a sorrow that I couldn't really focus, but I kept coming. And finally I realized that my commitment was not just to me, for my own personal growth, but it was the commitment to the community. And so for 30 years, this has been my home for my taking care of myself, my relationship with myself, my relationship with family and with you all, and with the world at large in the social action that I've been able to do here. Thank you.
Five years ago, I was in the process of moving to a new state. The list of important features for my new location included my daughter and grandchildren, a UU church, VA care for my husband, a library, a grocery store, a post office, and a movie theater. Here in Northwest Tucson, all of those things are available and more. The more for me includes snowbird friends from my Illinois UU church who already knew about MVUU and attended here. I started attending here in the summer that year without a snowbird escort. Did that matter? Of course not. My husband and I were warmly welcomed, not just by the weather, and we felt quite comfortable here. We were not immediately weekly attenders. We used some of those summer Sundays to look for a home or to tour someplace nearby and to visit other Arizona UU churches. By the time our snowbird friends arrived, we had become regulars at MVUU. We were building a network of friends and engaging in activities within the church framework. And with the Spring Finding Heart group, we became intimate with the depth of caring and possible connections in this congregation. I really mourned leaving my church in Illinois. We had been members for nearly 14 years. I had friends there, deep ties with friends there, and great respect and admiration for our minister and for the overall focus of life that both Bob and I had within that congregation. Moving here, I didn't think that was going to happen again. However, I have found a different but equally vibrant and loving community in this congregation, a network of citizenship participation, intellectual and artistic opportunities, lots of people to enjoy for their company and to have fun with. There is no lack at MVUU for social gatherings, meaningful action, and caring conversation. I choose to provide financial support, volunteer support, and physical participation in large doses to this organization because it provides so much for me and my family, as well as many others.
Thank you for those wonderful testimonials, and Chuck, for your words as well. Hopefully, they have lit the fire of commitment within you. And to further flame that fire of commitment, please rise as you are able and join with me in singing from the Teal hymnal, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.